Greetings everyone. As you might recall in the last video, if you watched it, I talked about this caboose that I picked up. It's a brass Van Hobbies caboose. It was painted, detailed, came with LEDs pre-installed for marker lights and the backup lights. And it was at one point wired for electrical pickups. However, at some point someone changed the trucks. The pickups themselves were kind of shot. So even though it was wired for LEDs, it wasn't actually working. So even though it looks beautiful externally, the electrical pieces were a little bit out of whack. So I wanted to get the lighting working again. So I decided to do a video about upgrading a caboose with lighting. Obviously this is a brass caboose, but the same procedure can apply to just about any other caboose. I'm not going to talk about installing LEDs for the marker lights and the backups, even though that might be a hard part in some cases, but it's already been done, so I'm going to skip that part. But essentially it's a matter of drilling out holes and pushing in a small LED with a fiber or otherwise. So a couple of other options. But anyway, let's concentrate on the task at hand. I've gathered a few things that I'm going to need here. Probably will need a few others as I go along. But essential tools: screwdrivers, needle nose, pliers. Right now the caboose does not have any LEDs for interior lighting. I wanted to add that as well. So got an LED. This is a golden white LED. Gives a nice warm yellowish glow on the inside, even though it looks orange. It actually glows kind of whitish. And for controlling the lighting, instead of it being constant, I decided to use a TCS function decoder. I'm going to use the FL4. It is a 4-function decoder, meaning it only controls functions such as lights. There is no motor control. And obviously we'll need 3 marker lights, backup lights, and interior lights. So we'll use those. Soldering iron, solder of course, and one of the things on this caboose itself that I wasn't happy with were the trucks themselves. Obviously these had been replaced at some point. These are not the typical type of truck that is used on this type of caboose. It used leaf-sprung trucks. These are coil-sprung, and there are other issues with them as well. So I'm going to take these off, and as a donor I have this old cupola caboose. Not nearly as nice as this one, of course, but it does have the right trucks on it, so I'm going to use those. And as an added bonus, these are already pre-weathered, so they'll go nicely with this caboose. So the trucks are off. I'm going to set them aside right here. As you can see, the old wiper wasn't in very good shape, all bent out of place, and didn't do much in terms of pickup. Wasn't even connected to the original wiring. It's just kind of sitting there. For pickups, I'm going to use these KD centering springs. Oops, this one fell. So these are essentially KD number 5 coupler centering springs, widely available, easy to get. You probably have a ton of them already. And they can also be very easily adapted as pickup springs for a caboose. But before we proceed with that, let's open this puppy up and see what kind of mess we have waiting for us inside. On this particular caboose, 2 screws to open it up. So let's go ahead and do that. And the other one. And let's take him apart. Alright, so I don't know how well you can see that. Let's see if we can zoom it a bit. So now that it's zoomed in a little bit better, you can see have a wires coming off of the LEDs or light or bulbs, whatever these are, and looks like they're going into these I don't want to say terminals, basically groups of wires twisted together. So I've been calling these LEDs in the past, but reality is, considering how the Caboose is, these could very well be bulbs as well. So before we proceed any further with the modifications, I want to establish whether these are indeed bulbs or LEDs, because with LEDs obviously you have to observe polarity, and we'll make sure the things are wired properly. Of course, one way to check that is to provide power to these terminals that we see here. Basically, low voltage DC power will be enough, and if these are LEDs, then they will only light up with polarity set one way, and if these are bulbs, they will light up regardless of what the polarity is. So let's try it. The easiest way to do that is using a simple button battery. So this is a 3-volt battery from an Apple TV remote. I just kind of swiped, and let's test it out. So we'll try it one way, and we see the lights light up. That's good. Everything works. That's a positive sign. And try it the other way, and we see everything lit up again. So this tells us that these are actually bulbs and not LEDs. So it'll make wiring easier, although there's a higher risk of these burning out at some point. Hopefully they don't. They haven't yet, so hopefully they'll stay that way. So the next step is going to be taking all of this apart, removing the old truck pickups, and removing this contraption in the middle. So now the old circuitry has been removed. I got the wires from the bulbs, as we've established, separated and coupled together so that the right outputs are on the same side. And these are for the backup lights, and these are for the marker lights. We'll keep them separated so that it's easier to figure out which outputs of the function decoder we're going to connect them to, and that'll be the next step. So here's the decoder, the TCS-FL4. This thing is really tiny, really small, so this is nice. It won't take a whole lot of space. So let's see if I can give you a close-up shot here. So here you go. It's as I said, it's really small. And so the next step will be getting the right leads soldered to the right outputs, so the right wires for the LEDs, and obviously the getting the truck pickups set up and functional, working as well. Now on this FL4 decoder, the power provided to the leads is actually 12 volts. These bulbs, I'm guessing, are well, I don't honestly know whether they're 12 volt or not capable, so I'd rather not risk it. And considering we'll be using an LED anyway, which is would burn out on 12, I'm going to put some dropping resistors in there, in between the feeds and the individual wires. We saw they operated just fine on 3 volts as well, so I'm going to try to drop down the power a bit. The backup lights are plenty bright, even at 3 volts, so dropping resistors it'll be. And finally, per the decoder manual, the only feeds of the 4 functions that it has that support that support the ability to turn on and off depending on the direction are 1 and 2. So that would be the green and the purple. So I'm going to connect the marker lights and the backup lights to those two. That way, depending on the direction of the train, when this decoder is operating in concert with the locomotive, either the backup lights or just the marker lights would be illuminated. And then the interior light can go on one of the other functions.